My mother demanded I pay her bills because I raised you. You owe me for life. When I refused, she told relatives I was ungrateful and threatened to disown me. At the family intervention, I said, "Funny how you forgot who paid your mortgage last year." Growing up in Chicago's South Side, it was just me and my mom, Rosa. My dad left when I was a baby, so she raised me alone. She worked long hours as a nurse, often double shifts, to provide for us. I admired her dedication and always felt grateful for her sacrifices. As I got older, I worked hard in school, aiming for a better future. I earned a scholarship to the University of Illinois and eventually landed a good job in finance downtown. With my stable income, I wanted to give back to my mom. I started by helping with groceries, then took over paying the utility bills, and eventually covered the mortgage on our modest home in Bridgeport. At first, it felt good to support her. But over time, her requests became more frequent and demanding. She'd ask for money to renovate the kitchen, then for a new car. I obliged, thinking it was the least I could do. Things took a turn when she asked me to fund a trip to Europe for her and her friends. I hesitated, explaining that I had my own financial goals and couldn't afford such an expense. Her reaction was explosive. "After all I've done for you, this is how you repay me," she yelled. "I raised you, and you owe me for life." I was stunned. "Mom, I've been supporting you for years. I'm trying to build my own future." She wouldn't hear it. She started telling relatives that I was ungrateful and neglecting her. Family gatherings became tense, with aunts and uncles pulling me aside to express their disappointment. Then came the family intervention. I was invited to my cousin Maria's house, thinking it was a regular get-together. Instead, I walked into a room filled with stern faces, my mom, aunts, uncles, and even some cousins. "David," my Uncle Luis began, "we're concerned about how you're treating your mother. She's told us you're refusing to support her." I took a deep breath, feeling cornered. "It's funny how everyone's quick to judge," I said, scanning the room. "But let's not forget who paid off Mom's mortgage last year when she was about to lose the house." Silence. "I've been covering expenses, ensuring she lives comfortably," I continued. "But there's a limit. I'm trying to build a future, maybe start a family of my own someday. I can't do that if I'm constantly bailing Mom out." My cousin Elena spoke up, "But she's your mother. Family comes first." "Exactly," I replied. "And as family, we should support each other, not exploit." "I've done my part, but it's time for boundaries." The room remained quiet. My mother looked away, perhaps grappling with the truth of my words. That evening, I packed my things and moved into an apartment closer to work. The distance was painful, but necessary. Over time, the family chatter subsided. Some understood my perspective, others remained distant. Months later, my mother reached out. Over coffee at a local cafe, she admitted she had been unfair. We agreed to rebuild our relationship, this time with mutual respect and understanding. Setting boundaries with loved ones is never easy, especially when cultural expectations weigh heavily. But sometimes, standing up for oneself is the only path to true harmony. The peace didn't last long. After that coffee meeting where she seemed to finally understand my side, I thought we were on better terms. For a while, things felt okay. She stopped calling every day to ask for money. We had a few decent conversations. I even started hoping we might actually rebuild some kind of relationship. I was wrong. 3 months later, I got a call from my cousin Hector. He was panicked, speaking fast, asking me if I really sold my mom's house. "What are you talking about?" I asked. "She's saying you tricked her into signing papers, that you stole the house from her." My stomach dropped. I immediately called my mom. She didn't pick up. Texted her. No reply. Then the messages from other relatives started rolling in. Some angry, some confused. Apparently, she'd been telling everyone that I had stolen her house and sold it behind her back. That she was now being forced to move because I wanted to leave her homeless. Which was not only insane, it was impossible. The house was still in her name. I had never touched it. All I had ever done was help pay the mortgage for 2 years when she fell behind. I had no legal claim to it. I drove straight to her place. She opened the door, looked at me like I was the villain in a soap opera. "I can't believe you're here," she said, voice shaking. "What the hell is going on?" I asked. "Why are you telling people I stole your house?" She crossed her arms. "Maybe now you'll understand what it feels like to be abandoned." I was speechless. She wasn't confused. She wasn't having memory issues. She was lying. On purpose. "You made that all up?" I asked. She didn't answer. Just stared at me. "You told people I scammed you." Her lip curled. "You betrayed me first. You turned your back on me in front of everyone." I couldn't even process it. She was angry that I had defended myself at the intervention. Angry that I wouldn't give her whatever she wanted anymore. And instead of having a real conversation, she weaponized the one thing she had left, her reputation as the long-suffering single mom. I left before I said something I'd regret. The next few weeks were chaos. I got harassed at work by extended family. One of my uncles even came to my office unannounced to talk some sense into me. HR had to escort him out. That's when I knew things were spiraling way out of control. So I did something I hadn't wanted to do. I printed out every transfer, every receipt, every bill I had covered. I made copies and mailed them to every family member who had been fed lies. No commentary. Just the truth in black and white. Mortgage statements. Utility bills. Even the email from her bank thanking me for a lump sum payment that kept the house out of foreclosure. I didn't hear anything for about a week. Then my aunt called. "We didn't know," she said quietly. "We're so sorry." One by one, a few of them started reaching out, apologizing, saying they didn't realize how much I had done. But not my mom. She doubled down, said I had forged the documents, that I was trying to make her look crazy. At this point, she started telling people I had always been a troubled child, and she only ever wanted the best for me. It was beyond dramatic. It was disturbing. I started therapy. I needed to make sense of everything, why someone who should love you would lie like that, hurt you like that. And the truth I came to was harsh. My mother didn't want a son. She wanted a provider. A loyal, quiet provider who'd keep giving without limits. The moment I stopped, she turned on me like I was a stranger. It got worse before it got better. Then one day I got a letter. Real, physical mail. Return address was her house. Inside was a single piece of paper. It said, "You've shamed me. You're no longer my son." No signature. Just that. My hands were shaking when I read it. I sat in my car for almost 2 hours just holding that piece of paper. It was all real now. She meant it. But that wasn't even the worst part. The real twist came 2 weeks later when I got a call from a lawyer. She was trying to sue me. I thought it couldn't get worse. But when I picked up that call from the lawyer, everything shifted again. He was polite, professional, but there was this chill in his voice. He said he was calling on behalf of my mother and that she was pursuing a civil suit against me for financial exploitation and emotional distress. He actually used those exact words. I remember sitting at my kitchen table staring at the wall as he explained that she claimed I had manipulated her into letting me control her finances and then abandoned her. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. It was so far from reality it felt like a bad joke. I told him there must be some mistake, that I had never had power of attorney, that all financial contributions were voluntary. He didn't argue. He just said I'd be served soon and hung up. I hired a lawyer the next day. My lawyer was a friend of a friend, Elise, sharp, no nonsense, maybe in her mid-50s. I laid out everything, showed her the documents I had already sent to family members. She shook her head a lot, made notes, and finally said, "She doesn't have a case, but this isn't about winning. She wants to drag you through the mud." I asked, why would she go this far? Elise looked me dead in the eye. Control. This is about control. Sure enough, a week later, a process server showed up at my apartment. Neighbors saw. I got texts from people I hadn't talked to in months. Rumors started again. My cousin's girlfriend told people I was being taken to court for elder abuse. My mom was doing interviews on Facebook Live, literally sitting in her kitchen talking to her phone, crying, saying I was a con artist. People believed her. Or at least wanted to. I found out she had joined some online support group for parents of ungrateful adult children, and she'd become one of the most active members. She shared heavily edited stories about our family, about me, claiming she was being punished for being a good mother. But then something shifted. One day, Elise called me and said, "There's something you need to see." She forwarded me a message that had been sent to her office email. It was from a woman named Denise, said she used to work with my mom years ago at the hospital. She said she had seen the Facebook drama and couldn't stay quiet. She explained that back when I was still in high school, my mom had borrowed a large sum of money from her. A loan. Promised to pay it back in 6 months. Never did. Ghosted her. Denise had taken her to small claims court. My mom lost, but never paid the full judgment. Denise had receipts. Emails. A scanned copy of the court ruling. Elise called it a pattern of behavior. Not just emotional manipulation, financial manipulation. There were more like Denise, too. Elise started digging and found 3 more cases where my mom had been sued or investigated for financial disputes with people in her personal life. Coworkers, a landlord, even a family friend. I didn't even know how to process it. My whole life, I'd seen her as the selfless, overworked single mom who'd done everything for me. Now I realized that was part of the image she needed to maintain. The sacrifices were real, but the story she told about them was tailored to make sure she always looked like the victim. Then came the real twist. One day I got a DM on Instagram from a young woman named Erica. She said, "I think I'm your sister." At first, I thought it was a scam. But she didn't ask for money. She sent a photo of a letter she found after her dad passed. My mom's name was written in it. Erica said her dad told her he had a child with a woman in Chicago, but lost contact after a big argument. Her birth certificate listed no mother. She had spent her whole life thinking her mom died or gave her up. Now, she was piecing it all together. She lived just outside St. Louis. We talked on the phone for hours. She told me about a photo she'd found in her dad's old keepsake box. It was of him with a woman, my mother. I confirmed it was her instantly. That's when I realized something else. Around the time Erica would have been born, my mom disappeared for about 3 months and told everyone she had gone to visit a sick relative in Arizona. I remembered that clearly because I had stayed with a neighbor during that time. Everything snapped into place. My mother had walked away from a whole other child. And yet she told everyone I owed her for life because of how much she gave up to raise me. I hadn't told anyone in the family about Erica. Not yet. I didn't know how to even begin. But I did tell Elise. She said, "This changes things. A lot." She added it to the case file, not because we were going to drag Erica into it, but because it proved one more thing about my mother. She would rewrite reality to fit her version of the truth. Then, while we were preparing for court, I got an email from an unknown address. No message in the body, just an attachment. It was a scanned document, a copy of a life insurance policy taken out years ago. My name was on it. Except I wasn't the beneficiary. I was the policyholder. My mother had taken out a life insurance policy in my name. Forged my signature. I brought it to Elise. She looked stunned. "This is identity theft," she said. And that's when she asked me, "Do you want to just defend yourself, or do you want to go after her now?" I told Elise I wanted to fight. Not just defend myself, but expose everything, every lie, every manipulation, every threat. I was tired of hiding behind politeness. Tired of worrying about what relatives would think. My mother had tried to ruin my life, legally and personally, and now she'd committed outright fraud. If she was going to war, I wasn't going to sit quietly anymore. Elise filed a counterclaim. Fraud. Defamation. Identity theft. When the court date finally came, it felt surreal. Sitting in that courtroom, watching my mother walk in like she was attending a PTA meeting. She wore a black dress, fake pearls, that dramatic scarf she used to wear to church when she wanted to look important. Her expression was calm, almost smug, as if she was confident the courtroom would eat out of the palm of her hand. She didn't even look at me. The judge asked us to speak in mediation first. Private room. Neutral ground. I'll never forget that moment. Me. My mother, Elise, her lawyer, and a court mediator. I stayed silent at first. Let Elise do the talking. She laid out the receipts, the bank transfers, the printed Facebook posts, the court history Elise had uncovered, and, finally, the life insurance policy. My mom's face didn't even twitch. She stared ahead, emotionless. Then Elise dropped the last bomb. "We're prepared to call a witness," she said calmly. "Her name is Erica. She has a photo of her father with Rosa. We have a handwriting expert ready to testify about the forged signature on the insurance document. And we have 3 prior victims of Ms. Rosa's financial manipulation willing to appear." The room went dead quiet. My mother's lawyer leaned toward her and whispered something, but she brushed him off. Then, finally, she spoke. "You think this makes you good?" Her voice shook. "Turning against your own mother in front of strangers? You tried to destroy my life," I said, finally breaking my silence. "You lied to everyone. You lied to me. And now you're caught." She stood up suddenly, eyes wide. "I gave you everything. You'd be nothing without me." The mediator told her to sit down. Her lawyer whispered again, more urgently this time. Her hands were shaking now. Her voice dropped into a hiss. "You're still ungrateful. You were always ungrateful. You think you're special because you paid a few bills? You think that wipes out what I did for you." And I just stared at her. "You told the world I abandoned you," I said quietly. "But you abandoned your daughter. You told me I owed you my life. But you used me to build your own. And when I said no for the first time, you tried to destroy me." Her face broke for the first time. A crack. She blinked, looked away. Then she sat back down, turned to her lawyer, and muttered, "I want to settle." The settlement hearing was formal and fast. She agreed to drop her suit. I dropped my counterclaim, except for the identity theft, which Elise reported to the state attorney. That part's still ongoing. But the courtroom drama wasn't the end. The fallout was nuclear. Some relatives apologized. Others stayed silent. A few doubled down, saying, "No matter what, she's still your mother." But something in me had broken. Some thread that held guilt and duty together. It snapped during that mediation when I saw her face twist, not in shame, but in defiance. She wasn't sorry. Not even close. Erica and I stayed in touch. We met in person. It was awkward, emotional. She had a calmness to her, but there was sadness, too. She said she had always felt like something was missing. "You're not what I expected," she told me. "You're a lot like her." It stung at first. Then I understood. "I'm trying not to be," I said. Elena, my cousin, the one who spoke at the intervention, called me a few weeks later. She said she had no idea how deep it went. That she felt sick about taking my mother's side. She cried on the phone. I didn't cry back. I wanted to, but I was dry inside. My mother hasn't contacted me since the settlement. No apology. No explanation. Sometimes I wonder if she ever cared about me, or if I was just another tool in her box, useful until I wasn't. Other times, I wonder if there's a version of her, buried deep under decades of resentment and bitterness, that loved me. That version is long gone now. I visit therapy weekly. I'm learning what healthy boundaries look like. How to forgive without letting someone back in. How to be my own person without carrying someone else's pain like it's mine to fix. I still live in the same apartment. I still work the same job. But something in me has shifted. I don't check my phone hoping for a message from her anymore. I don't feel guilty when I say no. And I don't believe love should ever come with a price tag. Not even from a parent. Especially not from a parent. I don't know if I feel free or just tired. But I know this. I gave her everything I had. And I'm done.